It's been a long time coming. This podcast is brought to you by Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. You guys already know it's my helmet of choice, and I'm excited to have them on as our title sponsor of the Fast Life podcast. SimpsonMotorcycleHelmets.com. Check out their new Rayleigh Outlaw Bandit, a sexy cobalt blue color. I know you've seen them on Instagram and stuff like that, but helmet looks really good in person. You guys should check it out. If you're not doing the full custom helmet thing, you can always just order a badass helmet straight from Simpson. So check that out there. Also, you can catch the Simpson team at AIM Expo. That's the SEMA of the motorcycle world, if you didn't know. Columbus, Ohio, September 28th through the 29th. It's open to the public, and, you can go. So just got to go to Columbus, Ohio. What's up, everyone? Just got back from Sturgis. I had a great time. Didn't get to do as many podcasts as I hoped, and that's because it's a party up there. But lots of connections made. I got a lot of good guests that are confirmed to come on, and the next couple of months are going to be really exciting for this podcast. So you guys stay tuned for all that good shit. Also want to thank you guys for, listening again. Anyway, let me get into it. Rode up to Omaha, Nebraska, met up with my boy Steve Chamberlain. You heard him on this podcast before. He's hanging out on this one with us as well, and the next one I'll be releasing. Really had a great time. Me and him rode from Omaha to Sturgis together. Did some really hardcore riding. Had some fun. He's the only one I know of that didn't walk away with tickets. But anyway, it was a really good time. I'll talk more about it in these podcasts. I don't want to spoil it on these intros. But you guys should have seen the bike that Big Bear brought out. It was pretty much put it like this. Kevin has stepped up the drop-in suspension game. I don't know if you've seen it online, but he's offering a full 30 millimeter cartridge kit, which is basically bringing you guys the glory of an inverted front end in a cartridge form. Right. So basically, you're going to be able to put this 30 mil cartridge in your stock forks and get some very, very high performing front suspension. I don't know the price point. I probably should know that since I'm plugging this thing. But at any rate, you can give Kevin a call at 909-478-7788. He's going to take that call and answer any questions. If you want to look at any of the products they have, you can check out bigbearperformance.com. And also you can follow them and see all his cool videos at Big Bear Choppers on Instagram. And guys, if you ain't following the gram and you didn't see John Jessup came strong as fuck to fucking Sturgis with this new 1982, they don't go together, right? Shovelhead FXR. This thing is amazing. It's another fine example of the quality work and the vision you're going to get from Team Dream Rides. From bike sales, maintenance to full custom builds. If you're not in Stockton, California or close enough to drive, you can always check out his website at teamdreamrides.com and use Fast Life at checkout for 10% off. The bikes he brought was amazing. Probably my top 4 FXRs he brought to the Sturgis. So check those guys out. I also want to thank Lexan Moto. They build premium Bluetooth and audio devices. Damn, tripping over my words. For riders at a realistic price point without sacrificing quality. Check out their product line at LexanMotorcycle.com and catch them at AIM Expo as well, September 28th through the 29th. I use these headsets every day on my daily commute and while I'm cross country. So, it's good enough for me. It should be good enough for everybody, right? That sounded fucked up. But anyway, check them out, order yours, and use Fast Life at checkout for 15% off at LexanMotorcycle.com. Also, follow them on Lexan Moto on Instagram. I also want to thank Lindahl Brakes. They have you covered in stopping and the swag department. Yes, that's right. I said swag. It's my new favorite word. Lindahl makes some of the sexiest brake rotors and wheels on the market, backed up by some of the best brake pads in the industry. Check out LindahlBrakes.com and see what they have for your bike. And don't forget to use Fast Life at checkout for 10% off. You can also follow them at Lindahl Brakes on Instagram. And see a ton of their products put to use and everybody else's vision on their bikes. They have a lot of badass content on their stuff, and you should be checking it all out. I also want to thank Paint Huffer Metal Flake. If you don't know, Paint Huffer Metal Flake is the industry standard when it comes to metal flake and one of the key elements in helping your paint job stand out. If you're a painter and you're looking for a plethora of flake and pearl options to many other custom paint products, check out painthuffer.com Use Fast Life at checkout for 15% off. Also, if you're just a customer guy looking for the right idea or even a painter to move forward with your project, follow Paint Hub for Metal Flake on Instagram to give you some insight on the directions you would like to go for your paint job on your bike, helmet, car, toilet. I've seen some crazy shit painted in my life. I'm sure you can find something for yourself. Anyway, guys, I want to thank all you listeners for tuning in and reaching out to our guests from the products you have purchased, the handshakes at the events nationwide. Thank you for helping this podcast grow. I also want to thank you Patreon supporters for helping fund this podcast. We have so much planned, and your contributions make these things possible. So you guys, for as little as $1 a month, which equates to $12 a year, makes a difference in the future of this podcast. It really does in many ways. I could go on and tell you what that money's for, but if you ever talk to me in person, I'll tell you exactly what that money goes to do. And you can always go to fastlifegarage.com and check out the link for Patreon. There are going to be things happening for Patreon people soon. I've been saying that since we started this, but now that work is kind of in a situation where I can manage it all and I can invest more time in this podcast, I can start bringing more things to the table for the guys that's been supporting me since day one. So, you guys sign up, check it out. And I promise you that there'll be things in there for you and your future, whether it's huge discounts on parts and products that you might be interested in to giveaways. So, check it out and support this if you dig it. My guest today is Bill Usher from Spaz Cycles. He is out of Omaha, Nebraska. Kind of dabbles in a lot of different styles of bikes, from your big wheel stuff to building some fucking badass performance baggers. I mean, he's kind of he likes two wheels and he makes them go fast and look good. So that's kind of that's what you need in this industry, right? So here he is, Bill Usher, Spaz Cycles.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Spaz Cycles.
Here we are. Cycle, no S.
Cycle.
No S. Yep.
What was that? What was the other sign in front of the new shop? What was that?
That was a bicycle shop.
Oh,
so
it's a pretty cool name.
It's kind of funny. I grew up hanging out in a bicycle shop, working on pimping out badass bicycles, and here I am 30 years later, moving my motorcycle shop into a bicycle shop. So, I don't know, rather ironic.
Are you from here in Omaha originally?
From North Carolina. Never lived more than 50 miles from an ocean in my life until 2013. So
what brought you here?
Money. That's it. That's it. I worked on linear accelerators, which is a small particle accelerator used to treat cancer, and was having a hard time filling a position in Omaha. And while I was trying to find someone to fill that position, I kind of sold it to myself. So moved out here, and honestly, I love living here. I think Omaha's a great town. It's a good mix.
It's not too far from a lot of shit, right?
It's in the middle of everything and close to nothing.
There you go.
It's close to nothing, but it's in the middle of everything. So, I don't know. I like living here. I think the demographics here are great. They're very balanced. Our kids have all gone to great schools, and employment's not an issue here. I just think it's an all-around great town to live in. What's
the city itself like? Where's the money come from? Like, is it more farming, agriculture type thing? Or?
All kinds of things. There's a lot of big business here. So TD Ameritrade is based in Omaha. PayPal has a huge center here in Omaha.
Union Pacific, a
lot of railroad stuff. There's just a ton of big industries. Warner Trucking.
Isn't Warren Buffett from here?
Warren Buffett lives
and he owns
in a very modest house.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, he's So there's just a lot of old money, a lot of big businesses, and the unemployment rate, I don't know for sure what it is, but I can tell you it's extremely low. Most people that live in Omaha want to work, want to pay their bills, want to do better for themselves and their family, and it's just a great place to live, great place to raise a family.
So if you were, would you say the thing you were doing was?
I worked on a small linear accelerator. Linear accelerator is what it's called. It's a small particle accelerator that's used to radiate cancer patients. So we smashed electrons into a piece of tungsten, knocked the photon out of it, and aimed the photon at people. Yeah, it's basically
sounds like how X-Men are made.
it's kind of like that, right? So I was a component level electronics and RF systems guy, and with a part-time hat in physics.
Damn. So you chose motorcycles.
Yep. So just playing with work. For me, growing up my whole life, pretty much worked on stuff, and I don't really care what the stuff is. Could be wagons, bicycles, go-karts, dirt bikes, Harleys. If there's a trend where people start building badass lawn chairs, I'll probably fucking build one. Like, I built rock buggies for a long time, full tube chassis. I really just like all things with a motor in it. If it's got a motor in it and it's cool, I'm in.
What drug you into motorcycles though?
Funny story. So I was in the Marine Corps, and my house was close enough to the base I could drive home for lunch. This was in '99 probably, and I had about 15 minutes to kill. Never knew anybody with a bike. Family didn't have motorcycles. Never even looked at a motorcycle and thought, I'd like to have one of those one day. But I had 15 minutes to kill on my way back to work. And there was an old ratty Honda Magna, ripped up seat for sale on the side of the road for $1,100. And I stopped to look at it just to kill time. Old man walks out and brings the keys out, and he hands me the keys, says, "You want to ride it?" I was like, really? I don't know what I'm doing, but okay. And anyway, I rode about 2 miles down the road, and I came back, man. I was so happy. I was shaken. I mean, truly shaken. Just like, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? And so most of my adult life since then, I've had motorcycle of some sort. And then I got really heavy into customizing them in 2011. I got hit by a truck on a bike and was in a wheelchair off and on for about a year. So while I was in that wheelchair is when I really kind of dove headfirst into figuring out what you can do to Harleys and how you can pimp them out. And I had nothing but time. I couldn't go to work. So how'd that play out with the job though? Did it just so 2011, as I'm figuring out what you can do with these Harleys, I wanted more information, and I couldn't find, there's no book for build a badass bagger for dummies. Yeah. And so I built a website called chopbaggers.com, and chopbaggers.com very, very quickly became one of the largest sources of information in our industry in 2011, 2012. Most of the guys my age weren't on Facebook yet. That wasn't a thing that men did. Yeah. And so the forums were a big deal, and so Chop Baggers became a very big deal. And so that basically you had a melting pot of information coming from all over the country. A lot of garage mechanics like me, a lot of guys that own small shops, a lot of guys that own big shops. Yeah. That basically openly shared everything they knew, and got a lot of people going. There's a lot of shops in the country right now that started their quest for knowledge on chopbaggers.com. But anyway, flash forward to 2013, I sold the site off to a guy named Mark Craven, and decided to focus on my career pretty heavy for a couple years. And so flash forward 2015, and me and two buddies were kind of doing some work on the side for guys, and it was kind of getting to the point where we couldn't just roll to the bank with a check for 10 grand and deposit it and not expect the IRS to come knocking on my door. So Spaz Cycle originally was started as a hobby business so that there was a paper trail, so that we were protected from the IRS. And that lasted about 6 weeks. And 6 weeks in, I walked away from my very lucrative career and said, fuck it, I'm gonna go head first, and one or two things are going to happen. Either I'm going to make it or I'm going to not. Either way, it's not that bad,
This was 2015?
So that was 2015, yeah, December 15.
So were you already here?
I was already here in Omaha. Okay. I had been in Omaha for about 3 years, I suppose. That's cool. 2013, I moved to Omaha. So, but I'll tell you what pushed me over the edge is I worked in what I would call big business, big dollar values. And I could tell you in big business, there's a lot of greedy people. There's a lot of dishonest people. There's a lot of people with no moral compass. I've sat at meetings with a team of salespeople on one side, team of physicians and physicists on the other side, and I can tell you right now that most humans would sell their grandparents for $2 million. Yeah. And I've sat and watched these conversations, and basically people just lying through their face. And one of the things that pushed me out of that industry was that's not me. I can't do that. Yeah. I'm going to tell you straight, like it or not, good or bad, I'm gonna tell you like it is. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I had a boss who, in my opinion, got crapped on by our company. He literally walked into work on a Monday at 8 o'clock, walked out at 8:30 without a job, and all I could think was, holy crap, one day they're gonna do that to me.
Yeah.
And that literally was the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's got to be scary for a lot of industries, though. In that world where you have, all this skill that could be phased out with, automation or just cheaper people to do it.
Greed, greed phases out a lot. So
I heard like a lot of people now in some areas are like, or companies are basically once somebody skilled or experienced will get the ball rolling, then they'll hire somebody directly out of high school or out of college with that degree to kind of continue the momentum that someone already started. So
my industry was very small. There was about 300 of us in North America, in every company that did what we did, and so we didn't really have that problem because most people coming out of college didn't even. I mean, they didn't know where to start. Where that was a problem was management, and so to me, my experience with corporate management is, unfortunately for the employees, is that the corporations tend to look at those executive management staff as sponges. So they hire a new sponge that's full of water and they start wringing it. And when they've wrung all the water out and all the ideas and new thoughts have been exhausted, well, then they throw the sponge away and get another one. And that in and of itself is why I decided to walk away from working for the man, quote unquote, and going to play with motorcycles. So
that'll do it for a lot of people, huh?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's that our parents, it wasn't that uncommon for them to tell it. I've been at the same employer for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. Our generation, there's no loyalty. There's very, very little loyalty. So I wanted to get into a business or into an industry or be in an environment where everybody is loyal to everybody. I would do anything for any one of my employees, and I feel like they do the same for me. And that's just the environment we work in. So,
I think the biker culture just breeds that. Like, there are greedy people in our industry or in the motorcycle industry, but for the most part, I think that those guys get phased out. They don't last forever. You know what I mean?
I think the large, overwhelming majority of the motorcycle industry is guys that are in it for the right reasons. They love motorcycles. There's a lot more to life than money. When you put a badass bike in front of somebody for the first time and you see the look on their face and they're like coming out of their skin, they don't know if they should kiss you or hug you or buy you a Christmas present. That emotion is worth so much more than money. Yeah. Or if you got a guy, last year I had 3 guys from, where were they from? Australia. They were riding across the state, and one of them had a mechanical problem that we dropped what we were doing to get them back to the East Coast so the guys could go back to Australia. They didn't thank me with money. They thanked me with emotion, and that's something that money can never duplicate, is what you get from people. So
that's a good. I mean, like, dude, we're here staying at your house, me and Mr. Chamberlain over here, and I mean, it kind of it breeds that biker culture. You know what I mean? Like, that you really just, there's a lot of shit we all do behind the scenes, I guess, it makes it work out well.
Yeah, anybody that gets in this business and thinks that if they get in this business because of dollar signs, they already failed. They've already gone wrong, and they will fail. So, the only way you can make it in the bike business, in my opinion, is be in it for the right reason. Really put your heart in the right place and do it for the love of motorcycles and the love of the motorcycle community. Most of my customers, I know them by name, and there's thousands of them.
Yeah.
Most of them I could tell you whether or not they have kids. Some of them I could tell you what grade they're in. That relationship is why I'm in this business.
How much of it, though, on the other end, is it you burning the midnight oil? Like, how stressful is it for you just in the business side of it, just trying to accommodate all the opportunities?
Going back to the limited, it's not a super high margin business, so there's a very fine line between making enough money and damn near bankrupting yourself. It's a very challenging business to be in, so that part of it is definitely stressful. Fortunately for me, we're in a great area with great customers, and
It seems like you got the fucking Walmart of bike shops going on.
Well, we kind of we're growing. So,
the new shop is fucking insane.
I just being from I think coming from a larger industry that pushes bigger dollar values around, I definitely treat my business as a business, and I run it as a business. I mean, yes, I'm an employee there, but I am not the only employee there.
Yeah.
I don't think or believe for a second that the reason my business is successful is because of me. I think it's me and my team, all of my employees. And, I think because I treat it as a business instead of Bill is the best motorcycle mechanic the world's ever seen, that helps us make good decisions. Like, you know what? Not everybody needs a new motor, but everybody needs a pair of gloves every now and then. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs a helmet every now and then. Everybody wants to buy a t-shirt with your name on it. You can't, a lot of shops, you meet the owner and very quickly, the first 20 minutes they're like, well, I'm the best fabricator the world's ever seen, or I'm the best painter the world's ever seen, or I'm the best engine builder the world's ever seen. I don't believe that myself or any other human is truly the best at anything. I think you need to be as good as you can be yourself.
Yeah.
But I think the second that you decide you're the best, you no longer are growing. And it's definitely not good from a business management point to think that you are the best. That's like a nail in the coffin.
I think it's hard for people to decipher, because like putting out the vibe that you have confidence in your work and confidence in the products that you put out there versus being conceited with you thinking that you're the best at what you do. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm good at what I do, but I also know that I'm not as good as a lot of people at what I do. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I'm confident that when customers come to me, like, I can do what, I can provide them with the services that I do, and I'm confident that I'm gonna make it badass, but I don't think I can pull off like airbrush work like Corey St. Clair or graphic work like Poland Designs. You know what I mean? Like, there's people that are masters in our industry, but I talk to those guys in the same way. Like, oh man, you're fucking awesome at this, man. I wish I could do it that way. And I'm like, dude, I just wish I was as good as you at this and shit, so.
And I guarantee you all of those greatest guys are still making an effort to learn every day.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And to challenge themselves every day and to do new things every day. And like I said, I mean, I think, for the average independent motorcycle shop owner, I think they really need to take that to heart and realize that they can always grow, they can always do better. Don't ever let their ego get in the way of a successful business, because it damn sure will.
So you started this shop around 2015.
Yep, October 2015.
So that was kind of like, I in my head, I don't know if this is accurate, if you would agree or not, but I felt like the height of the big wheel bagger thing was probably the 2016 year.
Yeah, I would agree. 2015, 2016, right in that window. So it made it easier for shops like mine to open, but that's definitely not what kept us open.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you think that the industry has changed so far from, because predominantly that's what you were kind of building, now, I mean, obviously, Midwest Grinder, Aaron Coit, he's a great friend of all of ours. I mean, you built that Dyna, that's a 124 full decked out PM everything Dyna, right?
Yeah, it is. It's honestly, it's one of the best looking, best, well-rounded Dynas I've ever seen. But, fortunately, since the bagger scene is kind of not going away, but it's definitely slowing down. That's exciting for us because we get to diversify a little bit. So, with Aaron, we've done a super cool Dyna 4. We're almost done with his Road King kind of performance bagger oriented. I had a guy named Cam Sukon come to us a couple years ago and say, hey, I want the baddest, reliable softail you can whip up. And next question from my mouth was, what's your budget? And his answer was easy. He said, don't worry about it. So, okay. So, and honestly, and I think we achieved that with his softail. We got a great customer here in town, Jeff Bliven, that has one of the sickest fat boys I've ever seen. That, again, I would get on it and ride it coast to coast. I kind of like that the bagger thing is fading off a little bit, because it does open the door for more diversification. The the techs, myself, everybody involved, if you do the same thing every day, day in, day out, it's really not that fun anymore. You can only put so many stretch bags on a bike. You only put so many 26-inch wheels or 30-inch wheels. That stuff is cool, but if you do 20 of them in a row, the coolness kind of wears.
It's hard
off.
to like give it to the customer like, here it is, and you're like not that enthusiastic. Like, okay, hey, here's this other one I just did. There's 4 more behind it. Yeah. Aaron
Coit's new Road King. First time I rode that, man, I was giddy like a schoolgirl that just kissed the first boyfriend. I mean, that thing is fucking amazing, and it's really not that crazy of a build. It's got mostly bolt-on stuff, but it's something new that really nobody else in our area here has done. And
see what I think about, me and Steve talk about this shit all the time, but what I think one of the selling points for a lot of people, with the performance bagger thing is that everything that you're buying and putting on this bike makes it ride better. The cool factor is like an acquired taste, right? So some dudes that are, it took me a while to look at a bike with stock bags and be like, that looks badass, because I was so used to that curb appeal of something sitting on the center stand in front and rear air ride. You know what I mean? Like, you walk up in a parking lot and that shit's just laid out. It looks fucking cool. It might not ride as badass or whatever, but it's fucking badass looking. You know what I mean? And so now with these performance baggers, like you're putting better suspension on it. So as the alternative was, let's put air ride on it, which may or may not be great depending on which brand you buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the handlebar heights, a lot of people are doing the moto bars and stuff like that, and that just puts a lot more control on the bike. Not that I don't love apes. Like, I've had plenty of baggers with apes and I loved it, but this T-bar shit is fucking like
it's legit. They're right good.
It's narrow, they're no wider than the fairing. You go to split a car and you don't have ape hangers that are sitting out 6 inches beyond the fairing on each side.
I think it's just like a different riding style that's just basically come about, but obviously the younger generation. But I think the soft tail thing that's been going on has been pretty cool too, seeing a lot of people building the not even the big wheel ones, but just putting money in different bikes. It is nice to see different shit than just another spaceship after another spaceship.
Yeah, I think if you get into any custom motorsports niche, whether it's cars or trucks or mini trucks or lowriders or lifted trucks or whatever, just pick one, motorcycles, scooters, whatever. There's definitely going to be trends, and I think the most exciting times are when there's not one trend overpowering that entire industry.
Yeah,
because
that would be now, right?
Well, right now is exactly what I'm saying. There's not one single trend that's really the predominant trend. We're seeing kind of a little bit of everything, and I think to me that's more interesting. That's more exciting.
I think the biggest trend that gets overlooked is like Kiriakin parts and live to ride emblems. Like when we go to Sturgis tomorrow, that's going to be all we see, but nobody talks about that trend,
what? There's a lot of, I got, Luke Henson here sitting right in front of me. He's 20, how old are you, 24?
4 now.
24 and got his first bike when he's 20. And between them, he's got almost 100,000 miles riding.
Damn.
And, that guy, Luke doesn't waste a whole bunch of money on crazy aftermarket shit, but he rides a lot. And the experiences that he gets riding, and the experiences that we get fixing his broken shit, that's just as fun as having a pimped out trailer queen taking it to bike night. So, if not more fun, really. So, but the crazy thing to think about is, most of us, the average shop owner in this industry is, in the say 45 years old and younger right now. What's shit gonna look like in 10 years? That's crazy to think of. What are we gonna be doing in 10 years? That's
I think that like a lot of younger, like your age, is like there's been, because my brother's the same way. My brother's like 23, about to be 24. So I think that they've got this like desire, like this wanderlust thing with bikes, and you want to ride them and go places, right? I didn't really come into motorcycles with that kind of thought process. Like I was just trying to, I was doing sport bikes. I was just trying to do wheelies and race and pick up chicks. Like that was the fucking MO right there. So it's kind of interesting to see what's going to come of it in 15 years of like guys like you and where you go in motorcycles and what you end up, wanting to do. Like that's going to ultimately, I think, like have an impact on our industry in some form or fashion.
Yeah, there's a shop here in town called Butterfield's MC Parts, and the guy that owned it is Bob Butterfield.
Is it the one that had that gas tank as a?
I came from one point. No, you're thinking of
that was Warner Cycle.
Yeah.
They were like a big dog dealer, but Butterfield's was basically in business for 30 some odd years. It's still in business actually. Bob died last year, or the year
2
before.
years ago, I think 2017.
And he was in it for 30 years, and the shit that he must have seen cumulatively, if you could have, put all his experiences in one book. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And what I will say is that man was well respected. His, when he died, it really left a hole in the whole motorcycle industry here in Omaha. And, I just hope that 30 years from now, I hope I make it to that level, where I'm really a key component in my local bike scene. So, but that's just that's what I want to see. I want to see the independent guys like me make it that 30 and 40 and 50 years. I don't want to see them dying away with the trends. I want to see them.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good point because
I want to see them bounce and adapt and grow and.
I think that when you truly are a shop that enjoys motorcycling, so if you enjoy motorcycling, that means you enjoy to ride them, right? That you're gonna jump on Aaron's bike and you're like, dude, that was fucking fun, right? That's gonna make you feel like fun. Like some people won't even try it because it's not a big wheel or it's not what they're associated with, right? So those are the guys, like you just said, they're going to die with the trends because, I think that big wheels are always going to be a part of the industry from here on out. Like, it's just like the chopper thing. It kind of goes up and down. The big wheel thing's going to do the same thing because they do fucking look good. If you want to build a bike to kind of like, just cruise around town, just pull up to a bike night and just shut it down, that's the fucking bike to do it.
Absolutely.
But, it's just like, it just seems on the downside right now. For some people. I mean, obviously.
Hey, the best case scenarios have both, right?
Yeah.
You got that performance bagger with a big wheel bike.
Well, shit. When we go to Sturgis this weekend, like I know a couple people that just built some fucking ridiculously nice ones, right? The shit's over $100,000 in these bikes. Like these dudes are still putting money in these bikes, but I think they're picking shops like yourself and Covington and DA, the people that have real experience and put a lot of effort into their customer service and the products they put out. Those are the guys that are getting the kind of jobs right now.
Yeah, I mean we stay for small shops we stay incredibly busy, but we don't put all of our attention in aftermarket either. You mentioned you met Arlen Ness years back, and he told you, the one thing to remember in this business is no matter what the trends are, everybody needs tires and everybody needs oil changes. Mm-hmm. Like I told you earlier, we've probably done over 300 tires this year, and probably 400 or 500 oil changes, and that stuff's important. It's not only important for your bottom line and keeping your business open, it's important to keep that relationship going with your customer base. Mm-hmm. You don't want, or I don't want anyway, I don't want anybody to drive by my shop and not stop because they think they have to spend $10,000 to walk in the door. I want them to feel just as comfortable buying a $1 sticker or a $10 pair of riding glasses as the guy that walks in and writes me a check for $50K. Mm-hmm. So
that's a good point. Yeah,
and I think that mentality, I hope that mentality is what will keep our shop alive long term, regardless of the trend. So.
I think so. I mean, I know a lot of people. We're kind of getting back to that conversation, aren't we? Mm-hmm. But there are those things, man. That there is fame associated with motorcycling. There is you can be famous in our scene, in our genre of bikes, or even in the motorcycle industry as a whole. And I think that that kind of plays a part, especially if you're already the king of shit around your town. Then you go to Sturgis and everybody's just sweating your nuts like that. That kind of plays to your egos and stuff, and I think that some people might start chasing that feeling over the feeling of just taking care of customers. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it definitely happens. There's no doubt about it. But like I told you earlier, my advice to those guys is, get on a bike and go ride it.
Yeah.
April.
That's how it was when I got like 20,000 followers. I was like, fuck everybody, man.
Yeah, 20,000 followers.
Oh, shit. It's like, fuck y'all.
I think,
you know what?
And that's actually, I'm going to keep on that for a second. That's, that is a real problem. A lot of shop owners, I don't know if it's because they get burnt out on motorcycles or they're just tired of motorcycles when they get off work. But, I really think that there should be a mandatory thing. If you own a bike shop, you have to take 10 days off a year and just go ride a fucking bike. And just remember why you did it to begin with. Yeah. If you went to MMI, or if you're like me and you started doing bikes in the garage, whatever originally caused you to be interested in motorcycling, go do that. Feed that beast. Remind him who he is. And as long as you have that, so if you can remember how awesome it is to own a motorcycle and ride a motorcycle, then you can appreciate being respectful and being honest with your customers, because they're after that same thing. They're after that same feeling of, holy shit, that was fucking awesome. Like that first time I rode a bike in 1999. They want that every day. So.
Yeah, and that can totally make you a better builder, too. You go out on a 10-day trip, and you're like, well, these things work and that works and everything, and it'll change you up, the way you build maybe a customer's bike. They want something like that, but if it's going to drag going around corners, just going in and out of town, you're going to be like, well, I really don't suggest we do it like this, because we can have this problem, and you're just more self-aware with this situation.
Yeah, it's being like experienced, or just doing trips yourself. You have a plethora of different types of customers, right? You got the guys we've already talked about that are coming in, they just want a showstopper. You got the guys that like I said, they're only coming in for the tires, the oil changes, and the fucking live to ride gas cap. That's all they want. And those guys are good money too, right? But
yeah, they're just as important as the other guy. I mean, they're equally important.
They're all going to ask your opinions about what they're interested in on bikes, and so you kind of have to have that experience riding bikes that are custom and that are stock and that are, what kind of motorcycling are you trying to? Well, I want to take a cross country trip. Well, you got to kind of know what kind of products. Okay, well, like we were talking about, I know what kind of tent you need to fit in your bag. You know what I mean?
Right. Fortunately for my business, and unfortunately for my wallet, through my own experimentation, I've spent a lot of money on my own bikes over the years, and even before I had a shop, and there's been several multi-$1,000 errors, and I don't mean error in that I did something wrong. I mean error as in, I tried a product that just doesn't fucking work. Yeah. Tried a system that doesn't work, or try to use a part that just doesn't work as it's described, and so that is a very real thing. Since I actually ride motorcycles, I'm able to keep my customers from making those same mistakes that I did. Yeah. And usually I do use myself as a guinea pig. The M8 came out, and everybody's like, oh man, aren't you guys worried everything's going to change? You're not going to know what to do, blah, 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 blah. So I went and fucking bought one. Yeah. For us to take apart. And honestly, it's not that bad. It's pretty easy to work on. Yeah. And I've got, one of the fastest M8s in Omaha area right now. I think just the willingness to experiment on my own shit, and the fact that we do ride a lot. My 18's got 17,000 miles on it, and my 15 that's been taken apart half its life has got 16,000 miles on it. So cumulative, I feel like I ride quite a bit, and lots of experiences from should you run this kind of brake pad, should you use this kind of bolt, should you use this kind of Loctite, should you what kind of oil should you use, what brand exhaust do you want to stay away from, every single thing you could imagine in the 200,000 or so miles I've ridden motorcycles. I have come across and formed my own opinion based on my own results. So I didn't read it in a magazine. I didn't fucking hear about it through Facebook or Instagram. I fucking did it myself, and it sometimes those were really expensive mistakes for me to make, and to me it was just part of the learning curve, just part of figuring out what works and what doesn't, and helps me advise my customers. So
there's a lot of things. I mean, shit.
That's like the best, I have so many people coming after me on my bike, with just stuff I did. Does this work? Does that work? What do you think of this seat? What do you think of that exhaust? And I'm like, all right, well, I've had it this long and it hasn't broke, and everything. I took this trip on a 1,000-mile day and the seat still felt good. I give my experience with it. I'm not making any money or doing it, but still my experience to share with people is still joy to myself, because it's all part of the motorcycle culture. And,
that goes back to what you were saying earlier about like being confident in your ability and your opinion and stuff. And when people first meet Bill, they're kind of like, oh, he kind of came off kind of like an arrogant douchebag.
Thanks, Luke.
I'm just saying, hey, that's what people say. That's not what I said.
It happens,
but
whatever.
They're like, oh, he kind of seemed.
But I said it with all due respect.
But they're like, oh, and then they'll see him a couple more times, like at a bike night and stuff, and they're like, oh, he's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, there's a reason that like I go to him, because he's honest with you, and like he said, he's got the experience, he's got the miles. And he doesn't want to put a part on your bike just to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when it goes back to the whole confidence thing, it's like you need to be confident in yourself and, be in it for the right reasons, like you said, obviously. But yeah, it's just, it's kind of funny because people are like, oh yeah, he kind of came off kind of cocky, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
there's no doubt, man. I mean, number one, I'm a Marine. First foremost, I was raised by Marines. Every fucking person I knew growing up was a Marine. So, that in and of itself is going to make you a little bit, bullheaded. But I just, when I quit my job to go play with motorcycles, I made a conscious decision right then and there, that minute, that I would no longer make choices based on money.
Yeah.
And, if a guy comes in, he says, yeah, I've got a fucking Suzuki, whatever. I want you to put a speaker system on my handlebars. My answer is no. And he might get upset with me. He might say, well, why not, man? My money's not good. No, it's not that your money's not good. It's that your money is good. And I don't want to see you waste it. I don't want to sell you a $400 or $500 audio system that you're going to be pissed off because you can't hear it over 35 miles an hour. I would rather you buy nothing than buy something you hate.
Yeah.
So, but that often does come off as arrogance. And it's really not arrogance. It's me being honest. So... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just an asshole. Like, I usually start off like people like me when they first meet me, and they just progressively start to realize that I'm a dick.
Yeah, well, that everybody's got their own way, I guess.
Oh, Bill, I don't know if you remember this, but like I added you on Facebook quite a few months ago, but I did my 124 build and just talking about it online. And then you went to me and you're like, yeah, if you want to race, we're going to have a deal. You got to ride at least 700 miles to the race. And then, we'll go and race it.
Hey, if you want to get down tomorrow morning, I'll get down.
So I was like that. And I looked at your bike and I seen pictures and I seen dirty air rear shocks, and I was like, all right, so I'm going to add one stipulation to this. I'm going to throw some corners in it.
I've got two different road glides. So my Go Fast road glide does not and will never have air ride on it. It's all Legend suspension.
No, I looked at the wrong one though.
I'm screwed. Trust me. I mean, if you want to throw some money down tomorrow morning, I'm in. But I don't know, man. It's one of the coolest confidence. One of the coolest things about learning stuff, probably even cooler than learning it, is sharing it with somebody. And sometimes you're sharing it, like if you call me and say, hey man, I'm fucking putting a cam in and I ran into this snag, what do you think? I'm gonna share with you everything I know, and you're doing it yourself, and that's why you want to know, is because you're doing it yourself. Some customers just want to know, what the fuck are they paying for?
Yeah.
And being able to share with them whatever information is in your brain is awesome. It's like I said, it's almost more rewarding than learning it yourself. So I like teaching people. I like sharing what we're doing with people, and like I said, you'll never hear come out of my mouth that I'm the best at anything. I think that we need to keep growing our whole lives until we turn into worm dirt. So
yeah, when you started that Chop Baggers thing, we talked about it a lot on this podcast because back in the day, a lot of our friends used to do that. What was the thing called? That like Booster Brad and Jason and all them.
That chopper
dogs.
Yeah.
So when Jesse James had his deal, it was called Chopper Dogs. You paid it was like a membership thing. You got it that had a whole chat room and this big, vast amount of people that were on it from the Chopper days. And that whole chat room thing was the only real social media thing that a lot of people had for a long time. And, Facebook kind of, they added the groups and shit, and then everything went to that.
Yeah, but Facebook groups pretty much smashed the forums real quick.
But now it's like
but you get no good information on them. Anybody puts anything up, they just go warranty. Oh, it's something. It's like it's not even like what the issue is. You're giving no knowledge to the situation. It's not about the right answer. It's about whoever puts the first answer down.
As much as I love sharing anything that I know that could help somebody, a lot of times if I see a Facebook post, I'll read through some of the other comments before I even reply and
see what you're getting into.
And I'm like, a lot of times I'm like, there's so many fucking assholes in this thread that I'm not even interested in helping anymore because these fucking D-bags ruined it for everybody. Because they're, if a guy buys his first Harley in January and in March he realizes half his fucking transmission oil is gone, well, he doesn't know everything a guy knows that maybe has been riding Harleys for 20 years, and you can't fucking beat the guy to death with a stick online, like, you're a fucking idiot because you don't know, blah, blah. And like, the guy's fucking asking because he doesn't know. I think we should help him out. Don't be a fucking dick about it. Just help the guy.
I had it more times than one, right? Half type out a reply, and then I just press delete because I'm like, I don't even want to do it.
Oh, man, I can't even.
Like, I want to help, but then I was like,
same thing.
I can't stand the
You're
other
scrolling
people
down Facebook and then you see the question from the group. You don't even know what group it is, but you see someone and you read it. Oh fuck! I got the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. You're like, I had that same issue.
Wait, I'm not falling for this. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna be in this chat room. There's probably already 50 comments in there already, and there's probably just like gifs in there now of people talking shit, memes.
The Michael Jackson one,
say the
popcorn.
Yeah, I say the threads that I tend to stay away from nowadays is, if somebody throws a picture up of a bike, it's fucking sitting half an inch off the ground, aired up, and you're looking at it, you're like, well, there's fucking 18 miles of speaker wire in that bike, and 27 speakers and 17 amps, and the guy's not gonna. If the guy's like, well, I just built the baddest motorcycle in the world, and I'm looking at it thinking, where the fuck are you gonna ride that thing?
Where's the motorcycle?
Basically, if you're not building cool fucking motorcycles like that you can ride, then I don't even comment anymore because I never have anything good to say. There's not one bike that's ever come out of my shop that I wouldn't get on and ride coast to coast. And that also means I'm never going to win any 6-foot trophies. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'm not in this for the trophies. So, but what I am in is, like I said, I think as soon as a bike gets to a point where you're not going to drive it because you're scared to drive it, because it's a trailer queen. If that's all you do, I got nothing for you. I got no comment for you. I don't even want to fucking talk to you. You're not important to me.
I've met so many people over the years that would like finally save up the money or take 401k loan out or whatever they did to get this money to build a bike, right? And then they go build it and they just have a horrible experience, whether it was with the builder or the parts they chose to go with. And at the end of the day, they're out the money. They have a bike that's now like not exactly worthless, but it either has to go to another shop to get done over, or it's just a pile of shit now. And it kind of ruins a lot of it. I think it hurts this industry more when those kind of things happen than people just having more positive experiences with shops and stuff like that. So
we had one in my shop this week. Actually today it left, but last week it was built by one of the probably the highest volume bagger builder in the world, and I would easily say that. And
I know he's talking.
You couldn't take this fucking bike over 62 miles an hour. That was the number. So at 62, it's not that it was uncomfortable at 62. It's that you were gonna fucking die at 62. And we got him up. We didn't test ride it past 85, but we got him up. Within 2 or 3 hours. To where you could at least ride it at interstate speed safely without dying. And it's like, how the fuck are these guys doing this at such a high production volume, kicking out bikes that you can't fucking ride nowhere? Like, a regular 2-lane highway in any city in the country has got a speed limit of 55. If you go 7 over, you're in a fucking death wobble. I mean, come on. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things, man. And the other thing that kind of, when you're looking at the big wheel world, like the other thing that I've been meaning to kind of check in on is, with a lot of companies going under, like Misfit and all these other people, you're losing these.
Those guys
products.
owe me a bunch of money, by the way.
Oh, they owe everybody money.
They owe everybody money.
So does a lot of other people we can name drop right now. I'm owed a lot of money from the big wheel bagger world, but yeah. So there's these companies that you're kind of like, you know. I think the only one really left is American Suspension, right? Doing Next, and then I think is HHI still in it?
Oh, absolutely. Mark and Beth that own HHI. I mean, they're honestly they're first fucking.
They were around before the big wheel thing.
Yes,
too.
absolutely. So Hog Halter's been around a long time, and they're two of the most honest people you'll ever meet in our industry. And you know, in my mind, they're in it for the right reasons. You know, if I go to trade shows and stuff, they're there. You know, yeah. And if you stop by their booth and talk to them at a trade show, you know, they're not necessarily cramming their new products down your throat. They're asking you, hey, you know, did you ride up? What route did you take? You know, what kind of bike you're riding this time? You know, they're just as interested in that relationship with me as I am with my customers, and for that reason, I'll always do business with them.
So is that what you prefer to use, is those Necks or what?
It just depends, man, on the setup. You know, Pickard's got a great slug. Last several, you know, Pickard slug, HHI neck on the big wheels. It works. There's lots of other ways to do it, but that's the way that works for me the best. So if it's a 30 HHI short neck, you know, I've done. The last one we did was, you know, I personally rode a bike 105, 110 miles an hour. Like it's fucking awesome at that speed.
See, when I had mine, it was before they had all the neck kits. So all you did was, you know, you use a stock
frame,
neck.
yep.
Yeah, you just put that block in there and did like this. And dude, I was able to do 120 on my shit. I only had a 26 though. So
yeah, stock neck, the HHI trees rides great. Seems like every time. Not stock neck, but stock raked neck.
Yeah.
Repeat that. So stock raked neck with HHI trees seems to ride great. Or I've done one with Pickard trees. That was fine too. Seems like every time we vary from that setup on a 26, things just don't quite go as planned. So that's not to say the bike's unrideable by any stretch of imagination, but you know, I do hang out with a lot of hooligans, and you know, it's not that uncommon for us to see, you know, 120 plus. So. You know, it might, you know, I would say all, but most of the bikes that we do would hang at that speed, no problem. So,
what do you think of, like, as far as like events that you go to? What do you think is probably like your favorite, like Sturgis?
Honestly, it's not. You know, bike rallies are not they're not in my top list of events. Personally, my favorite events are when me and my woman and friends are riding motorcycles, and we don't need a rally to do that. Like, it could just be a fucking 4-day weekend, going to Colorado or going to wherever. You know, professionally, event wise, you know, we're one of the biggest drag dealers in Nebraska, if not the biggest drag dealer in Nebraska. And you know, drag has several events, industry shows, and there's something called the drag dealer ride. That honestly, the drag dealer ride is probably my favorite weekend of the year, because Drag Specialties kind of rolls the red carpet out for us.
Don't they do it in Vegas?
It's in a different city every year. This year it's going to be in Arizona in October. Last year it was in South Carolina. So you know, those are all industry people, and it's an invite only kind of deal. So, like, you know, the guys that are there, they're all there to ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
They're not there to like pound their chest and tell you how fucking cool they are and pump their egos up. They're there to ride motorcycles, and you're there to ride motorcycles. Yeah. You know, so you might be eating lunch with the fucking vice president of SNS, and you know what? He's just a regular dude. He's actually a really cool guy. You know, he doesn't care that you know who he is.
Yeah.
What he's there for is to ride motorcycles just like you, and that's honestly one of my favorite events. The bike rallies are heavily diluted with egos, and when I do go to rallies, I spend my time with my friends. I don't worry about hanging out with the egos too much, because it's just not me. It's not what I do.
Yeah, me and Steve were talking. It's like we're really trying to this trip. We're really trying to network a lot, you know, with like obviously this podcast thing, but yeah, just going out there and just kind of getting some people on here and talking and shit like that. But I'm looking forward to it at Sturgis and stuff, but there's also the other part of Sturgis where I'm like, I do want to go see, Iron Mountain and fucking Mount Rushmore and go ride Spearfish and all the events that go on, or just all the rides that you can do and stuff like that. But it sucks, man, because these events, like me, I'm going there as like a guy that wants to ride bikes and have fun, but like trying to put on this business.
Gotta find balance, man.
Yeah.
So we the last couple times I went to Sturgis, I basically set like a personal goal, like, okay, I won't spend more than X hours a day, or I won't spend more than X days, talking shop with anybody. After that, I'm going to disappear and go hang with my friends, ride motorcycles, and do what I love to do. So,
yeah, that's the funnest, man.
Yeah, because there's like a ton of people on Instagram I talk to all the time going out to Sturgis. I'm just more excited to just go meet them in person. Maybe we'll go take a rip down the road or whatever,
Maybe they're cooler than you thought. Maybe they're not as cool as you thought.
Yeah, because
It'll be a
run people's expectations.
the way social media is nowadays, you can have friends all over the country. It's like first time I met you in person.
Yeah.
Walk in your house.
Yeah, and you're sleeping in my fucking house.
You go, my house is your house, and I'm like, I appreciate that. For the amount of times I've heard that so far this year is amazing to me. I've probably heard that at least 7-8 times.
It's the biker community, man. We're you could take any one of us on this table and fucking drop us in a city and in anywhere in America, and immediately we have a whole network of friends. Mm-hmm. We might not even know them all, but the guys on motorcycles are friends of ours, and that's just, for some reason, motorcycles are that way, and they've always been that way, and they'll probably hopefully always be that way. So
yeah, it was the podcast I put out before last, we were really going hard on social media and like how things that we can't stand about it, but realistically, like, a lot of what's taking place on this trip is because of social media. Like, I know you through it. Like, when you guys sent me that bike to paint, like, you knew me through social media.
All through Facebook, yeah.
And I met Aaron because you referred him to me, and now he's a close friend. And so it's all like the social media thing has it's really good benefits to it, but it does have its toxic qualities and stuff like that. But yeah.
Like my camp out that it was through, up northern Michigan, I only put it on basically my Instagram,
All right, so let me get this right, Steve. So you quit your job and you decided to live in a camper. So you made an attempt at convincing everybody that you know or might want to know you to go camping with you.
Way north in Michigan in the woods.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, please. I was pretty sure that's what happened. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure.
It kind of worked, didn't it?
Yeah. No, I had people come from all over. Craig from Florida, he didn't ride his bike up, but
he was sending me videos, chaps. And another thing, like, dude,
like, he didn't come with a bike, but he's like, hey, these are friends we made at the Fast Life camp out. I just want to be here, Then my machinist, Justin, he ended up coming up from Arkansas. I had buddies from Virginia. My buddy Anthony from Virginia. Travis and Skunk from Pennsylvania, buddy from New York, Wisconsin. Like, this is just for like a random little event. It's just people I talk to on Instagram.
Those grassroots, kind of like you were saying about like those events that you do with your friends. They're not really events, but it's like just getting together and doing that shit. That's kind of like the concept behind the camp out we threw and the camp out you're doing, and it just kind of gives people a chance to meet each other. Like,
it's just a reason.
It's like an Instagram meetup.
Well, I hope that you keep them that way.
We've been thinking about, like,
it seems like every time somebody tries to commercialize something that wasn't originally commercialized, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And
we were just having this conversation at bike night, because the guys that we do our bike night with are the ones that help us through it on, and basically we have people requesting for certain things to take place at the camp out. Like, oh man, it'd be cool if you had shirts, it'd be cool if you had this, it'd be cool if you had that, and all that shit requires money, right? So it's like, when you start looking at, like, we've been at a point where we're trying to look at it like, how can we generate some type of money out of this thing to reinvest into it, and which doesn't feel bad, but there's also the other side of it where I like coming here to party.
Right.
And I don't want to have to work here.
I don't want to babysit.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the fun out of it by putting a monetary value on it. You know, because if you start charging, oh yeah, you got to pay to get in. Well, then you got to pay this much because we got to make enough to pay for the shirts and blah blah blah. It takes the fun out of it, and like the stuff like that is cool because it kind of, you know, whatever you want to call it, like helps you remember it or whatever. But to be honest, like it might drive some people away if they're like too cheap to pay, you know, the fee to get in or whatever.
Well, people are all paying camping fees, but you know, with the same thing, like you know, if camping fees are $15 a head per night, and then you do it at $20 a head per night, then you're only, you know, and 150 people show up, you know, you're making less than $1,000 basically. Right. But if that $1,000 was put into something for the camp out to make it better, then it's kind of a good idea. But I don't know, it's a very slippery slope.
Yes. Yeah, it's
you start looking at it like, fuck, man, we can just throw $2 more on this and I can pay my bike notes.
I know if I do another camp out, we're gonna have more biker games, you know, like,
yeah, we were talking about that too.
Like we were up there, and then it was just like one guy goes, all right, you know, there's these tricycles at this campground, like, had built. We're like, we're going to do tricycle races. So we all just hopped on tricycles and, like, doing that. And the next thing you know, like, we're all, like, all our bikes are sitting there. We're like, all right, slow bike race. You know, it's 11 o'clock at night. You know, we're all just been hanging out and cooped up from the rain all day. But next thing you know, like, we're just having a blast just doing slow bike races, you know. It just kind of brought, like, the culture back to it, you know. It was just hanging out with your buddies, you know. If I'm going to do, like, a slow bike race, I don't want to do it at a big event with nobody I know. But when it's all your buddies and
it's
you know,
funny,
that, it's like, heck yeah, you know. I ended up winning a slow bike race.
I will say this about you know, some of the guys in the industry, even the ones that have the biggest egos, you know, if you get them away from all the people that are trying to prove that they have a big ego, it's like most guys are actually really fucking cool, and I mean all the way to the biggest builders in the business. So in that, you know, maybe I think that's what we're all talking about here, like the smaller events, keeping the group small, keeping the friend circle small.
Going back to the basics, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you literally, you could take a guy that you just think is the biggest dickhead you ever met in your life because the persona that he's trying to put on for his, you know, TV show or for his audience of whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you know, but get him by himself, you know, a couple guys and have some drinks and talk about motorcycles, and you know, 99.9% of the time they're solid guys that do remember why they got in this business. So
I agree to that, because same thing. I mean, I talk to a lot of people through business and through this podcast, and you know, people are like, oh, that dude's a dick on this, and then I look at his Instagram like, yeah, he's kind of fucking being a dick right there, but he was totally cool when we hung out and drank beer and talked on the podcast and things like that.
You know, I'll pick on John Schultz for a second. You know, he's piped down quite a bit on social media here the past couple of years, but you know, several years ago, it's like every time I met somebody that had met him, they're like, man, he's a dick. And I'm like, have you ever actually fucking talked to the guy? Like, like really talk to him. Like, I don't mean with fucking business. 40 other fucking people talk to, but like really talk to him. Just like ask him how he's doing. The motherfucker's nice as hell. You know, he's a great family man. He's got an awesome wife. And, you know, I think that John's a great example. Unfortunately, if, you know, how you know, if you're not careful, you can put off this persona that just rubs people the wrong way. Even if you're genuinely just a solid motherfucker. He's just a good dude. You know, his story about how, you know, the bagger thing started for him, and you know, he's coming off the choppers and you know, basically told his wife, you know, like, hey, I'm gonna give it a shot and see what happens. It just, I don't know. John's a good guy. He's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. He's just, you get him out by himself, and it's like, you know, you really don't get to know somebody in a group of 40.
Yeah.
You need to be in a group of 4. So, you know, I don't know. I think, you know, most of us are in this for the right reasons.
Yeah, he started, you know, when he hooked up with Richard Rollins, and, you know, I know John's been wanting to try to push this, like, TV narrative for so many years. And it's fun. Like, I'm not trying to pick on him or anything, but it's funny because he's been putting these videos up on Instagram, like, kind of talking about, like, the path of his shop, which are really informative, but his mannerisms are not the same as who he is. You know what I mean?
Well, that's, you know, all of us, well, anybody that's been, you know, around this industry, I don't even mean in the industry, around this industry, you know, past 10, 15 years, like, you've met somebody, you know, somebody that had a TV show or was on a TV show, half the shit on TV shows is fucking staged. It's fake. It's there for TV. So, I personally, I look at a guy like Johnny. He's very successful, and he's made enough money. He doesn't really need any more money. To me, I don't think he's going after the TV show thinking, oh, I'm going to be, a fucking gazillionaire because of. I think it's a personal challenge. I think he's the kind of person that just has to challenge himself, whether it's building the baddest fucking hot rod the world's ever seen, the coolest fucking bike the world's ever seen, or the neatest TV show the world's ever seen. I think he just needs that personal challenge, and that, to me, is a great quality to have. So
I've talked to a lot of people about like the idea of, is it arrogant or is it conceited to really consider like the legacy of your brand? Like when I think about, what I have in my shop and my name or whatever, like is it arrogant of me to like think of like, man, like what are people gonna remember of me in 20 years or 50 years or whatever? If I died next week on the way home, what the fuck? Like it's kind of I guess an arrogant thing to think about, but it's kind of like, you put your whole life into this industry. You want to feel like there's some mutual respect from everybody that's, whatever. I don't know, bro.
The earth is like a gazillion years old, right?
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck knows, man? Odds are 60 years from now, ain't nobody gonna know who the fuck we are, who we were. Just have a great time while you're here, because odds are you're gonna be worm dirt. So
they won't even have big wheel baggers in 60 years.
Yeah, fuck it, we flying motorcycles. They'll be like, what were them fools doing with wheels? That's the dumbest shit I ever heard of.
Gonna be like a bagger dirt bike.
But that's that Bob, I mentioned Bob Butterfield. To me, his legacy is what I want. The fact that I brought him up, the fact that we're talking about him, the fact that anybody in Omaha that owns a motorcycle knows who he was.
Even the young people.
I don't need everybody in the world to know who I am. I want the people that I helped or was trying to help in my career. I want them to know who I was.
Yeah.
So if they happen to mention me to their kids, then fucking great. But probably they won't. So
yeah, I guess the weird thing is like the fact that I'm thinking like it's kind of like you want to be able to watch who comes to your funeral and see like that motherfucker's not crying.
Yeah. Well, don't do that. I fucking hate funerals. You won't see me at too many funerals.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, it's just weird. I mean, you for me as like the artistic side of my life, that it's always been a weird thing that you want to create some kind of art that kind of lives on past you. It's kind of I think it's, whether it's stated or not, it's kind of the thing that all artists are doing. Like they want to create something that's going to be worth something. And when you're custom painting things, it's we talked about this in another podcast, but it's kind of a material possession. It's kind of like someone's just buying a product off a shelf. So it gets very overlooked as like if you bought like a badass painting and you put it on your wall. And I was thinking about this on the way over here. It's like we take selfies and we take pictures and hey man, take a picture of me real quick. All this shit, and like I know a lot of really badass photographers, and it's like I kind of want a picture of myself or me and my wife from you as a badass photographer. Like I want to value that picture. I want to value that. The fact that, man, that fucking Steve Chamberlain took that fucking picture, man, that means a lot to me. Even though it's me, but it's like the fact that thing holds some kind of memory or it was done by somebody that I respected or something. You know what I mean?
Don't think about that shit too much because you'll drive yourself nuts.
Oh, yeah, that's how we all do.
Yeah, I get it, though, man. I know what you're saying. So.
Yeah, so it's a weird, man. Like, we've been trying to do that with the paint jobs, but...
I'll tell you where it really comes in play. What you're asking about, it's not your job, it's your family. It's your kids. It's how they are. It's how they treat their kids and how their kids treat their kids. That's you want to talk about somebody that's going to remember you. It's that right there.
Oh yeah, so. Yeah. That's I had a good life lesson about that this last month, and it's really insane. Just seeing that take place. I like, you know what I mean. So. It's been a crazy month. I wasn't planning on coming to Sturgis, so this is the last
best
minute
trips,
decision.
man. Best trips.
Yeah, I forgot flannel. Like I'm fucking sunburnt now. And
yeah, no, I guess.
I could probably, yeah. Well, I'm sure we could find something.
Well, yeah, we need to figure out what the weather's looking like in the morning. So
bad.
It's like rain at like 1.
Yeah. Except you're driving into it, so
yeah, whatever.
I got rained on a little bit on the way up here.
I like to see one of them bikes with 74 speakers make the same trip.
Riding some of the storms.
Maybe they could carry the 6-foot trophy on the back.
Yeah. I feel bad because every time I would talk shit, you know, like it's kind of like that traumatized thing, like when you're a kid, like something happened, so forever you think about that bad thing as in this one item. So for me, it was always like dualies. and big wheel baggers was like the dually is the fucking evil thing for big wheel baggers for me. It's so well because it was
dually, then a trailer.
It's just one of those things, man. It's very stupid to me, but basically it was like whenever I was like going through the end of 2016 is whenever I kind of switched over to Dynas and this other shit, right? And it was mainly because I didn't feel like the big wheel industry gave a fuck about people that rode bikes, and not that they should have gave a fuck about me, but it was they didn't care about the concept of riding these bikes. It was more about like, let's get a big ass truck and trailer and load them up, and then it was almost like the truck and trailer was part of the show.
The bike was an
absolutely.
accessory.
And so that's what
we kind of saw that happen with Misfit, right? So
yeah. So we saw that like this kind of shit like ingrained that with that culture to me, because I saw that fuckery taking place with this right here. So everybody was doing this is I guess when the truck wheels where they started popping them out. I guess this is when dually wheels started getting real big. They weren't really doing that fucking Mexican style put the wheels out far kind of thing.
That's how my brother's truck is. I make fun of him for it.
That shit reminds me of like an old RAV4 from like old or like 92. You know,
I don't know. Like I said, if you're a shop owner and you're listening to this and you're building bikes, you can't ride more than 20 miles without a support trailer. Just please fucking go away. Just go away.
I don't like when I hear people...
Or quit putting your pictures on the interwebs because we don't want to fucking see them.
What sucks is when people use... And I guess there's a million excuses, so I don't want to take this with a grain of salt, I guess. But when people say they're so busy they can't ride. You know what I mean? Like, I got too much going on, man. I never get a chance to ride. We got this. You know what I mean? Everything is hindering them from riding. And there are guys out there like Sean from TOL. He's a good friend of mine, and he doesn't.
That motherfucker works too much.
Yeah, he does.
There ain't that many people that actually work too much.
I slept in his house.
That dude works too much.
I stayed with him in his house for a week, and I don't know how he hasn't had a heart attack already. For the amount of work that he does, and just his schedule is like insane. I don't know if it's healthy.
Maybe it's the, Tony from Top Shop. He's the same fucking way. That dude will go to work and stay there till 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't get it. I'm not gonna do that. So
yeah, there's some people out there that just aren't getting on the bikes, but I think that the majority of people, there's no real excuse not to if you're in the motorcycle industry.
I'd say, when my shop started, I definitely in the first couple of years, I noticed that I was riding less. Mm-hmm. Like, specifically was riding less, and I made a very intentional point to go back to riding more because I was busy and I was stressed out, and honestly, you get around something long enough, and if you're around motorcycles 10-12 hours a day, well, it can very easily, if you're not careful, you'll lose your interest in them because they're not interesting because you're always fucking around them.
Or it could be the source of all the stress in your life, and then when you see that bike or you see the opportunity to ride a bike, you're like, I want to be away from this shit.
So, I'd say for me, my mindset is I'm just way better off mentally spending more time on a bike, and it's good for the soul, balance, man. It's good for the soul.
It's a good balance. You need to be able to get on a bike and kind of like just detox a little bit.
Well, yeah, 5 minutes or 5 days, still has the same effect.
I keep everybody's like, because my bike out there, I bought it in September, and
you got a raggedy ass paint job.
Yeah, and I'm crossing like 20. I'll probably hit 23,000 miles before we get to Sturgis on it, and everybody, I was talking with this guy that picked up this helmet yesterday, and we were talking about. I was like, it sounds cool to say that on Instagram. Like, yeah, dude, I put 23,000 miles in this bike, and I still got 2 more months before it's a year. But realistically, I don't have a fucking car right now. I haven't had one for like You know, that fucking car that I picked you up in, like I haven't had a vehicle, so me and my wife have been sharing one truck all year, so I've been riding all year long to and from work, running
That'll
errands.
definitely rack some miles,
Yeah, so I mean, I did a couple trips already, but like it really was just a shit ton.
But still, though, isn't it true? I mean, like this trip you're on now, you know, that release, that euphoria from a ride to work is like the same as it's a 10-day trip.
It sucked up until I passed Salina, however you say it.
Kansas.
Salina.
Yeah,
so
Salina,
once I got there, I was kind of like, you know, just trying to bang out the miles, but it kind of gets less populated after that on the road. And then the hills are kind of rolling a little bit and the sun was going down. I was like, okay, this is that spot. You know, this is where it's like, there's not really anything cool to see, but this feels badass.
Then you show up here, we try to put you to work. We're having it.
Building a wall.
Steve's the best electrician carpenter I ever met.
I figured this was going to happen.
Hey, show up over here, you know.
Jay says he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show up at 6, and then rolls in at like 9. I
was like, oh, there he
for
went.
the past 3 hours.
Yeah, I think one of the things that needs to be talked about probably more is going back to our kids, getting our kids into motorcycles, and you know, unfortunately, the brand that we love the most, the MSRPs are getting fucking out of control, and so you know, my kid's 21 years old. He's going to come out of college with a degree in mathematics. He's not likely to ever have a really high paying job, and for him to wrap his mind around buying a $30,000 Road Glide, like that's. I mean, he's got a higher chance of winning the lottery, you know.
Yeah. Fortunately, though, I mean, as far as like buying new bikes, it's going to be tough, and that's going to be their, you know, with all these new things that Harley's trying to release, it might kind of bridge a gap between that generation. But realistically, you can get a really nice Road Glide for under 10 grand. You know, 2012, absolutely. 09 and up.
One move that I really like that they did is that Electra Standard.
Glide Standard.
Yeah, that's
came
definitely.
Out with it, and like, hey, you get a radio. Yeah. You know, you're getting 17-inch wheels, the standard bags. I don't even think it has rear passenger pegs. I think it has a.
It's like a street bob.
I look at that and I'm like, make the same thing in a Road Glide Standard. You know, just make a glove box up there. You know, and keep them cheap. You know, like
there's plenty of bikes out there that I think we've been having this I was having this conversation with Scott at Simpson with the other owner and stuff when I was over there, and it's like there's not enough culture wrapped around whether it's the dirt bike scene anymore like it was, you know, 15 years ago, or the motorcycle building scene that it was. So there's really not a lot of TV, or there's not a lot of influence other than physically just Instagram and Facebook and shit like that.
Yeah, I think it would be great if we did get a popular motorcycle related TV show, and you know the fucking haters are going to come out of the woodworks. They're going to be like, oh, fuck that guy, he's fake, this, that, but honestly, it'd be like it's a great thing for our industry.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy was a good thing for our industry, and I mean, it did a lot of. I mean, it really kind of displayed what was already taking place in California, even though people were like, oh man, everybody's trying to be like, no, that shit was already there like that. That show was mimicking.
It didn't start because of Sons of Anarchy. Yeah.
They've been doing that
show
since the 80s.
Yeah, that show mimicked what was currently taking place, and then, you know, it just kind of like showed the rest of the country, and now here we are a couple years later, and there's dynas in fucking Omaha, like, you know. Yeah. So there's always dynas, but now there's this club style dyna, this performance bike is kind of been pushed across the country, but there needs to be something, man. Like, you know, you get a good, you know, can we get a Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man remake? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's about time for, you know, some sort of motorcycle related show to come out.
Yeah, maybe a movie. Maybe it could be like Jace Hudson Against the World. Yeah, Captain Jace.
Made for Steve.
I always think of even
Steve and Jace's Excellent Adventure.
Like biker builder or biker build off remakes, you know. Nowadays, what can people come up with? You know, we got our stuff that we watch, you know, the guys that go to Born Free, and you know, they're basically taking same model bikes and doing that. Why can't we have something like that nowadays?
They have been trying that kind of stuff. Like they tried it with that Sacred Steel show, and then John Chopin did that Battlegrounds Phoenix thing a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. The problem is that the TV thing is dead.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the biggest thing. So it sucks for our industry because there's really no way to really put that kind of content on TV. You know what I mean?
I wonder if
the
they
thing
should go
is
after
we have-
Netflix or something.
We have YouTube nowadays.
Yeah.
There's Motor Trend has like crazy car shows that they weekly update, and
There's also not as much of an incentive for someone like you or I or any of us to really do that shit, other than the fact that we're going to be on TV. Like, they don't really offer much of anything.
It ain't all dollar signs anymore. Like
Nah, the people I do know that have talked or had TV shows or been on TV shows, most of them, not all of them, most of them made very, 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 very little money out of the deal. So
I remember
that's a lot of headache to go through for.
I remember Rick Fairless, the guy that owns Strokers. He's hamster, all that stuff. I could be talking shit, so just putting that out there. But I remember
There's no shit talking going on.
I remember hearing back in like 06, because he had this show called Mama's House or Roadhouse, and it was basically about his bar, which is a good place. You've been there.
Sweet place.
But basically he was bankrolling all the production and trying to get someone to pick it up, which is basically what Richard Rollins did to start that stuff. But it wasn't like the show came to him. So a lot of these people had to like bankroll all this shit on their own and try to pitch it to different networks to pick it up and stuff like that. So
if I was to guess, I bet John's probably doing a similar thing right now. But I hope we get some. We need to get the younger guys more interested. It seems like the kids, in their early 20s right now. But a lot of them are like, I don't give a fuck about motorcycles. Like, I just need to get to work.
Yeah.
Like, give me the car that has the best gas mileage. That's what I'm after. So
Give me that Prius.
yeah.
How do like young people get pussy now? Like, how does that happen?
I don't know, man.
It's just like
Instagram. They get it off the social media. That's the difference. We didn't have that shit. We had to like be cool through
like download
material.
this app. Here's Bumble for you. Here's Tinder.
Yeah, I guess they do have it easier.
Yeah, we had to like fix ourselves up a little bit and like have like stand out over the other guys at the bar or the fucking wherever you're at. So
In person, even.
yeah,
Like face to
You had to
face.
say hi in person.
Yeah.
if I tell myself this in my head because I think that I used to be a pimp. You know what I mean? But it's like
that might be the first indicator that you weren't.
I feel like I used to just slay it. You know what I mean? No, but I think about like back in like 01, when I was graduating high school and shit. I was like, we didn't really have that at all. Like, we had AOL chat rooms, like, so you didn't know if you were talking to a fat ass old man or fucking hot chick or anything.
The original catfish.
Yeah, I remember my buddy Seth in high school. He's like, man, I met this chick online. She's so fucking hot. Let me show you a picture. And he hooks his computer up to dial-up internet. It's like fucking 9 minutes in, we've got like from our eyebrows uploaded. And I'm like, dude, she's not that hot. She's got the worst looking eyebrows I've ever seen. I didn't even stick around to see the rest of the picture, but back then, that was, early 90s. It fucking took that long to get a picture to load. Nowadays, you could decide if you hate or love someone 30 times in 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So we have so much access to information now.
So when like MySpace came out, that shit was like, I got that when I was still somewhat young, and so I did a good job in that, right? And then Facebook came around, and that was only for college students, which was not banging me. Not educated women.
Wait a minute. I thought you said he was a pimp.
I was a pimp for retarded girls.
All right.
So, but then I guess the thing that's different now is like with the instantness of like the apps and shit. You know what I mean? Like that was a different thing.
It's a different world nowadays.
It's really crazy. We're sitting here talking about this, like how it's changed the young people's lives. And reality is most of them don't even use that shit. They're not on fucking Facebook. They're not. They got like 20-year-olds and younger. Don't give a shit about.
Well, yeah, like Facebook's kind of like
old people
over, but like my daughter's on like Snapchat and fucking those kind of things.
Yeah, this is other social medias.
Yeah, so the Snapchat and Instagram is more for the younger generation. Facebook is, I don't even like using it because there's just too much bullshit on there.
I use it for work more than anything.
There's a lot of, there's people to sell shit to. I just watched that documentary on Cambridge Analytics the other day. That shit was crazy. Facebook, man. But yeah, I don't know. Well, shit, man. What else? You got anything cool coming on this year? Or? Besides this new big ass shop.
New big ass shop. Yeah, I mean we're, I put a lot of focus in. Like I said, that little guy that walks in the door that just wants to buy a T-shirt.
Or the one that bought a red test street corner.
Right. And, so our new shop is going to have a 4,500 square foot retail store. And that's been pretty much the sole thought in my brain the last month and a half since we signed the lease is getting that place ready to go. And hopefully it works out. Otherwise, I'm moving to Texas to live in your basement. But you said you don't have a basement.
Yeah,
or go live with Steve up in his camper.
Yeah, well, can you fit like 2 adults and a child in your camper?
Sleep in my
And a
garage.
big ass cat.
No, we don't really have anything crazy going on anytime soon. It's just maintaining, getting people ready for Sturgis. We'll see several last minute, hey, I need a set of tires and oil change.
Yeah.
And by the way, my transmission case is broken in half. Can you fix that by Friday?
I saw that shit.
We'll have several of those here this week. And we'll catch a lot of traffic on the way back from Sturgis. So if anybody is on the way back and you got problems, by all means, stop in Omaha, Nebraska and see us at Spaz Cycle. So we'll probably take care of you.
Probably.
But probably. Depends on how I say it like that. You never really know. It seems that's weird. It's like as much shit as we keep in stock. It's like we always, it's like somebody comes in looking for exactly what I don't have. Like, we could.
Which drag do y'all usually pull from? Wisconsin?
Wisconsin, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that a
so
day?
most times it's next day, if we get it in before lunchtime. So
that's cool.
But like I said, we do stock quite a bit, and we do have a pretty good relationship with all the Harley dealers around here as well, and even some of the independent shops around here. So, we've all helped each other out. We've all sold each other parts, and that's one thing I'm really lucky about, or fortunate that we do have those relationships here in our area. Because a lot of areas, man, it's like, Joe Blow's shop, all he does is talk shit about Tom's shop, and all Tom does is talk shit about Paul's shop, and it's like, it's just so much easier to operate when everybody.
You got to really watch, in that situation, you got to watch out for the customers.
Oh yeah, they get caught up in the middle of it. They'll pick a side.
Yeah, well, they'll start the fire, and then that feud, it's kind of centered around their situation, and it makes them feel like they're part of the industry.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And
Oh,
a lot of people do that. Like a lot of people do
There's
that.
There's a really fucking cool custom shop in Lincoln called Exotic Customs, and the guy that owns it, Derek. It's like when we first opened it. I don't even know who the fuck it was, but it was like 10 or so people that seemed like their sole job was to pit me and Derek against each other. Mm-hmm. Like they go to Derek and say, well, Spaz Cycle said blah 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 about you, and they come to me and say, well, Derek said blah 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 about you, and the reality is neither one of us said shit about the other guy because we're fucking an hour away from each other. We really aren't competing with each other. We do different stuff.
Yeah.
And but you're absolutely right. A lot of times it was the customers lighting that fucking fire just to see what would happen. I don't know if they're trying to create drama or just trying to create excitement or.
It is. It's exciting for them because they might have a really boring life.
I guess.
I
think everything operates smoother if everybody gets along. Somebody comes in here and wants a crazy ass seat, and they're like, "Who can do it in Nebraska?" I'm like, "Fuck, Derek's your man." If they need a dyno tune on their bike, I'm like, RPM Power Sports. The Harley dealers, all 3 of them in our area here, are really great to work with. So, I hope that most independent shop owners have it like that. That they do get along with their competitors in the area, but my gut tells me they probably don't.
It's a pretty dumb thing to do nowadays when you have all this access to customers through the internet and just whether it's walking in the door or whatever, and you choose to like talk shit, even if like you made a mistake and that customer left and went to the other shop. That other shop should do this. Just hey. I'll call Bill and see what's up and just tell him about the situation and see if you want to just go ahead and take care of the situation and not let it like escalate into some feud or some Facebook or some this is what other shops do, this is why you should come to me all the time. Like you never know the situation with that customer and what that customer was trying to get that shop to do or what that you never even know if the customer did that customer might have did all that shit himself, took it to the shop for an oil change, and then brought it to you.
Oh yeah, been there, done that. There's a couple things to hit on there. The reality is, every business that's in business does good business most of the time. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in business. It's pretty fucking simple math.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've had it happen many times. You know, somebody walks in the door and says, I'm never going back to so and so because blah 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 blah. And I'm sure people said it about us at some point, you know. But the reality is, like, that one experience that you had at that other shop should not be the sole thing that you define them by. You know, it might have been a bad experience for you, and fuck, you might have even dealt with an asshole employee. But if that business operated like that every day, they wouldn't be around. So, you know, it's not productive to carry that grudge and like try to share it with everybody. You know,
I was listening to another. I think it was a Bike and Bird podcast, or they do another one, or Between Two Wheels. And they had this guy on there that had a good point where it was, he worked at a dealership, and he said that he hates when someone will come to their dealership and they'll talk to somebody in some department and then base the entire dealership off that one experience. So, like, you walk into the sales floor, you had a bad conversation or you didn't like what you heard, so now that whole dealership sucks. Their service department sucks. Their fucking apparel department sucks. Like, everything sucks about that dealership. So it does kind of suck that, like, one...
That's, you know, some of that's just us as Americans, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we feel like everything should be perfect all the time, and if as a consumer, if it's not perfect all the time, then we're just pissed, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, if you buy a table and you open it out of the box and there's a scratch on it, you're like, oh, that company's the biggest fuck pile of shit company ever, because your table happened to be the one with a scratch on it. Well, you're not fucking bringing up the 922 tables that were shipped that didn't have a scratch in them, you know. And I think that's just us, you know. That's our society. That's where we're living in. I will tell you this, you know, I worked on in my career some of the most technologically advanced electromechanical devices in the history of human beings. And I don't give a fuck what you work on, who you work for, how fancy your toolbox is. Every now and then you're going to fuck up. It's going to happen. And to me, the defining factor between the good and the bad is what happens right after that. You know, do you as a business say, you know what? We fucked up. Let's fix it. Let's go out of our way, even if it's unreasonably out of your way to make it right. You know, if you did that, then you did good. Then you did not screw up in my book. Because, like I said, we're all humans. We're all going to screw up every now and then. You know, back in my past life, man, I had an X-ray camera in my hand one day, and I was just fucking bullshit with somebody. I dropped it, hit the ground. All right, it was the last of this particular X-ray camera in existence in the fucking universe. It was $40,000 camera, and I fucking shattered it at my feet. And it was the last one. There were no more. Okay? And I dropped it right in front of the people I was putting it in for, or about to, or was going to. You know, shit happens. People make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, what happens right after that is all that matters. In their case, they got a whole bunch of upgrades that they didn't know they were getting. So, you know, so it just, you know, for any consumers out there, if you do have a shop that works on your bike and they screwed up once, give them a second chance. You know, if you're not willing to give them a second chance, you know, don't make it your mission to fucking shut them down, because you're not going to. All you're going to do is make yourself look like a fool. And for the shops out there, if you do make a mistake, fucking own it.
Yeah.
You know, fix it. Make it right. If that means you got to get your ass out of bed on Sunday and go pick a bike up in a trailer, then fucking do it. Like,
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
Oh, we've all done it. So,
those damn air ride days, woo.
fuck air ride, man. I'll tell you this about air ride. This is for all the consumers out there with air ride. Right? I don't give a fuck what brand it is, what components you have, who did it, who put it in, how much money you spent. If you have air ride, you're going to learn intimately how that bitch works, because something is going to go wrong one day. I promise. That's my talk on air ride.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, shit's always inconvenient.
it's just, you know, the industry doesn't support having a $3,000 air ride system. If it did, we'd have some baller shit that could never break. You know, people want that basic air ride to be $400, and you know, you're not going to make a bulletproof system for $400. It's just not going to fucking happen. So
Yeah, that's pretty much how a lot of things are.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to, like, aircraft, you know, grade quality, you know,
it's like trying to compare that $300 wheel to that $3,000 wheel. You know, it's not the same.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Like people using drag shocks, no offense to drag, and then trying to compare them to like what Big Bear's doing with his shocks and shit. You know, it's like you're gonna have with motorcycles, you're gonna have to spend some money to have really nice shit. You know, unless you want to go buy like a Beamer or something.
Yeah, there is. So one of the, we were talking about adventure touring bikes here lately. Me and Tracy, my girlfriend, and that's probably going to be our next pair of bikes that we buy. And there's it's really disheartening because an 1190 KTM's adventure touring bike is 160 fucking horsepower stock. 160. It's ugly as sin.
That's the thing, though.
Looks like a dirt bike with a suitcase bolted to it.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Fucking fast. So.
I'm telling you. I agreed. Okay, so when I got into Dynas, it took a while for me to find a curb appeal of this bike. And once I did, I was like, oh, that's good. And then you start seeing these bags on them, and you start getting used to seeing the swing arm and the wheel. And then, out of nowhere, I was at IMS show, and I was like, that GS 1200 looks fucking sexy.
Dude, some of them Beamers are badass.
So I'm like, it becomes an acquired taste once you start looking at different bikes in different ways, It took me a while, man.
I think the only people that are really going to get interested in that genre bike is guys that are really interested in riding.
Yeah.
Here in the Midwest, there's more unpaved roads than there are paved roads.
Dude. So we did the podcast when we were in Cali with Brian from TPJ, which is fucking phenomenal chopper bike builder guy. We didn't even touch on the fact this dude literally will jump on a bike and go 200 miles. He lives in Reno. He'll go 200 miles into Montana, or it's further than 200 miles, but he'll ride to Montana, all dirt roads. And then I was just like, wait, what? Like he smokes a lot of weed, right? So he took us to the top of this mountain right by his house after we did the podcast with him. And it's Mount Rose, I think, right there in Reno. So we're at the top of the mountain. He goes, yeah, this is where I come and smoke at all the time. And it's like you can see all the valley of like Reno and Carson City and all that shit. And he goes, you see that hill right there? You see that little trail? That's the place they grow the weed right there where I go. So I take my adventure bike and he rides up on the road, and then he takes the whole road down on dirt. It's just insane like that. There's a lot of, and then the Trans-American Trail that goes like, what is it from? It's like all the way. It's like 4,000 miles or something, all off road. There's a lot of cool shit on off road bikes. I don't really want to ride off road.
Well, I would definitely like to see that trend pick up. It
is. It's
the interesting thing about motorcycles is the more of a particular style bike that gets purchased, the more the aftermarket industry steps up and starts doing cool shit with them. Mm-hmm. So if that style bike were to take off, fuck, who knows, man? Who knows? You might have some 250 horsepower KTM's right now. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you ever watch those documentaries, A Long Way Round and Long Way Down?
No, not myself.
Some good shit. It's Venture Bikes with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Bowman. They start in London and ride all the way around the world.
That's badass.
And then then the second series is they start in Scotland and they ride all the way to South Africa. It's fucking amazing. It's a really good thing. And it's crazy watching that and have done trips before. Some of the dynamics that go on between them, it's like shit that happens. It's like a common thing that happens when you're on trips with guys and shit like that. So it's a really good documentary.
You just think the draw to motorcycles is freedom, right? That's what it feels like. And so if you're on a bike that you can be cruising down the interstate and then just hanging left on a dirt road, that's fucking freedom. I'm very much interested in that. We tried it this year on a street glide and road glide. 50 miles down a gravel road, multiple gravel roads in Colorado in the mountains. I don't recommend it. It was fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
A 900-pound bike with street tires does not belong on a gravel road for 50 miles. So, not to mention the fear of breaking a belt the whole time. So,
when you're passing signs that say no motorcycles.
Yeah, apparently there was a sign that said no motorcycles. I didn't see it.
Just ignore it. It'll be all right.
Well, cool, man. We'll wrap this up. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man. I think it's really cool that you guys stopped in a town, stopped at my house, and Steve Chamberlain's the best non-carpenter, electrician, wood cutting guy I've ever met. He's a hell of a framer, and he's available. So
tell everybody follow your Instagram, your Facebook.
Yep. So Spaz Cycle. on both Facebook and Instagram. That is us. That's what we do. We're kind of weak on Instagram. We don't post a whole lot. I get bitched at all the time by multiple people.
You know, you
about
can
not
just
posting on Instagram.
post on Instagram.
That's
and
what I keep hearing. All these people with all this fucking technology.
But it doesn't go
shit.
the other way.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. So we need to step it up on Instagram just for those followers. Like I said, we're just a regular shop. We're not focused on any one genre of bike. We do everything from the big wheels all the way to a lady came in today and dropped her bike off. The last thing that happened tonight, she dropped her bike off for a set of tires. We do a little bit. We're pretty well rounded.
You're a bike shop.
Yeah, we're like the real deal. A lot of these guys are like, oh, I do the biggest stereo, blah 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 blah, but they couldn't tell you where the fucking drain plug's at. They
got to get out the picture.
Yeah,
they got to get on YouTube. Oh, there's 3 drain plugs down here. Which one's the one?
Yeah, exactly.
Wrong
so
one.
I've got
Wrong one. Put that again.
We got 2 great mechanics in my shop. One of my mechanics, Zach, is from MMI. The other mechanic went to a local community college here for motorcycle course there for 2 years, I think. That's Randy. So Zach and Randy really get it done in my shop, and we're not a one-man band. It takes everybody. We got a 16-year-old works for us, Anthony. His job basically is to get yelled at all day.
Bottom of the totem pole.
By anybody that wants to yell. We could have customers come in and they just look angry. We're like, go yell at Anthony. So even Anthony, to me and everybody in the middle, customers that are helping out all the time, it takes the whole team, right, to make it happen. So I hope lots of other shops like mine are also making it happen. I hope that continues to be a thing. It's every time new shit comes out, in our business, people are like, oh God, that's going to shut you down. That's going to lock you out. That's going to whatever. I hope we all keep fucking rolling with the punches and keep getting it. And, I hope 30 years from now when I fucking get out of this, people at least know who the fuck I am.
Yeah, you got to get you a live wire station at your shop now. So
yeah.
The EV plug.
Oh, fuck.
Charging station.
Yeah.
24 hour.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how many of those will sell, but
we'll see.
Anyway, I love motorcycles. I love being in the business I'm in. I love my customers. I can honestly say I really don't have any bad customers. I've never had one. I think that my relationship with them is worth far more than money could ever be, and I hope they appreciate that, and I hope that other shops out there in the country have that same outlook. So.
Yep.
And I love Jace, and I think he should run for president.
Yeah.
Jace for president.
We're out. Peace.
Really hope you guys enjoyed that. I want to thank Bill and his girlfriend, I think is what he said it was, for opening up their house, letting me and Steve crash there on our way to Sturgis, and sharing some of the insights of his path in this motorcycle industry. I also want to thank the guys over at Simpson Motorcycle Helmets on Instagram and SimpsonMotorcycleHelmets.com. Check out their new website, very intuitive with all types of links to all the shit they sell. Check them out. Also, Dream Rides John on Instagram and TeamDreamRides.com, and use offer code FASTLIFE at checkout for 10% off on a ton of really dope shit that you would probably want for your bike, so you should check them out. Kevin at Big Bear Choppers on Instagram and BigBearPerformance.com, 909-478-7788. Give him a call and let him tell you all about his new 30mm cartridge kit for your baggers. Also want to thank Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram and PaintHuffer.com. Use offer code FASTLIFE for 15% off at checkout. I also want to thank Lindahl Brakes on Instagram and LindahlBrakes.com, and use offer code FASTLIFE for 10% off your purchases through them. And Lexan Moto, my headset of choice, the only one I've ever had, but it's great. Listen to this podcast and many others on Lexan Moto's headsets. There you go. Check them out. LexanMotorcycle.com, FastLife at checkout for 15% off. And I want to thank you guys for supporting this podcast, and we'll be back very soon with another one for you. Peace.